Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanandana Jasodanandana Vrajajanandana Yamanatira Vanam Chadi Yamunatira Vanam Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanandana Jasodanandana Vrajajanandana Yamunatira Vanachadi Yamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Vishnupat Paramahamsa Avidagacharya Astatara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Pimanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya We're going to conclude the chapter with continuing with just a summary of the chapter yesterday. Asked, where are we? Said this, it's not just that there's one verse that's quoted here, but it's the whole chapter being summarized in a unique way. I'll just read the last two sections and then continue. We're going to go over downhill this morning. The gopis also say, aha, look, even though it is very cool, and even though the rain cloud stays above all else, with great love in its heart, the rain cloud carefully serves Krishna with its shade, and its nectar rains. Fie on us wretched gopis, very proud of taking shelter of Krishna alone and keeping him alone in our life's breath. We are wretched. Even without serving Krishna, we somehow remain alive in this world. Then, Govardhan, aha! Even though it is made of rocks, and even though it has taken birth as a hill, Govardhan is filled with bliss. This the gopis affirm in the following words, reference from an important verse in Bhagavatam. Glorious Govardhan hill is the best of Krishna's servants. Krishna and Balaram climb it to play their flutes on its summit. With the touch of Krishna and Balaram's lotus feet, Govardhan feels bliss and manifests many symptoms of ecstasy, beginning with the standing erect of the blades of grass that are the hairs on its body. Its entire body offers in service to Krishna. Its entire body it offers in the service of Krishna's friends and cows. I've heard that the grass on its slopes are Govardhan Hill's bodily hairs standing erect in ecstasy. If you do not believe that, then look for yourself. Hearing the music of Krishna's flute, Govardhan Hill glistens with ecstatic love. Krishna's footprints decorate Govardhan Hill. Thinking of the gopis, Madhukanta was overcome. He was the narrator, and now the narration is winding up. His heart was agitated. He spoke broken words in a choked voice. He covered his face with his garment. Filled with sorrow, he wept. Then he repeated the following mysterious words spoken by Radha. Quote, this flute must have performed many pious deeds in its past lives, for even though he is a male, he shamelessly drinks the nectar of Krishna's lips, nectar that is the gopis' property, and as it drinks, the flute loudly sings. When it is satisfied that it has drunk enough, the flute vomits out a host of noisily flowing rivers of nectar that make the trees bloom with many flowers and weep with blissful tears of dripping honey. Radha also said, I pray that I may attain the body of a flute. I do not pray to attain the body of a saintly teenage girl. As a flute, I will thirstily enjoy many blissful, rare pastimes of drinking the nectar of Krishna's lips if, as a flute, I become an inanimate object, a being without life or consciousness, then at least I will be free of the sorrows I feel separated from Krishna. Radha also said, "Oh, shark of Krishna's earrings, you always kiss Krishna's cheeks. Oh, flute, you always lick Krishna's lips. Oh, flower garland, you always embrace Krishna's body. You are all fortunate. Destiny is kind to you. Alas, I am not fortunate. Destiny is not kind to me. That is why I yearn to attain good fortune like yours." Radha also said, "The necklaces of pearls, diamonds, and jasmine flowers never leave Krishna's chest. What are we in comparison to these fortunate beings? Alas, we are only girls overcome with Kamadev's desires." Radha again said, "If dark Krishna does not give his association to others, then I will not burn in flames of sorrow." Let's say it again. If dark Krishna does not give his association to others, then I will not burn in flames of sorrow. Alas, how can I bear to watch while Krishna fearlessly hugs his Gopa friends? In this way, Krishna's flute music conquered all the people of Braja and made them all fall in love with Krishna. In this way, I have described the pastimes of the early morning. Folding his palms, Madhukanta again said, "O Radha, no one can understand the desires of your beloved Krishna's heart." The evening's narration was thus concluded. Everyone returned to their homes. That's the end of our reading from chapter 35. And now we'll go to chapter 36 in a moment. Yeah. Chapter 36 is the slaying of Aristasura. Comes right after this amazing chapter 35. Here's the chapter summary. This chapter describes how Krishna killed Aristasura and how Kamsa reacted when he learned from Narada that Krishna and Balaram were the sons of Vasudeva. The demon Arista wanted to kill Krishna and Balaram, and thus he assumed the form of a huge bull with sharp horns. Everyone in Krishna's cowherd village became terrified when Aristasura approached it, but the Lord pacified them. And when the bull demon charged him, he seized him by the horns and threw him about 6 yards. Though weakened, Arista still wanted to attack Krishna. Thus, dripping with sweat, he charged the Lord once again. This time, Krishna grabbed his horns, threw him to the ground, and thrashed him like a pile of wet clothing. The demon vomited blood and gave up his life. Then, Krishna and Rama, while being honored by the demigods and cowherd boys, returned to the village. A short time later, Narada Muni, the great sage among the demigods, came to see King Kamsa. He informed the king that Krishna and Balaram were not Nanda's sons, but rather Vasudeva's. It was out of fear that Kamsa that Vasudeva had put the 2 boys under Nanda's care. Furthermore, said Narada, Kamsa would meet his death at their hands. Kamsa shook with fear and anger when he heard all this, and in great agitation he began thinking of how to destroy Krishna and Balaram. He called for the demons Chanura and Mushtika and instructed them to kill the two brothers in a wrestling match. Then he spoke to Akrura, who was expert at executing his duties. Taking Akrura by the hand, Kamsa persuaded him to go to Braja to bring the two boys to Mathura. Akrura agreed to carry out Kamsa's order and then returned home. End of chapter and beginning of text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, the demon, Arista, then came to the cowherd village. Appearing in the form of a bull with a large hump, he made the earth tremble as he tore it apart with his hooves. Purport. According to Sri Vishnu Purana, Aristasura entered Krishna's village at twilight as the Lord prepared to dance with the gopis. Gives the verse in Sanskrit. Once, midway through the period of dusk, when Lord Janardana was eager to perform the rasa dance, Aristasura madly entered the cowherd village, terrifying everyone. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, the 36th chapter describes how Kamsa, hearing from Narada that Krishna had killed Aristasura, imprisoned Devaki and Vasudeva, and ordered Akrura to go to Braja. As tarhi is used in the sentence, it's a technical thing. When Krishna began his Rasa Leela in the evening, then Aristasura came. Vishnu Purana describes this quote. One day, when Krishna was enjoying the rasa dance in the twilight, Aristasura entered the village after spreading fear everywhere. While Krishna was enjoying, something interrupted that enjoyment. Arista had the form of a bull with a large hump on its back, his back. Stamping his hooves, he shook the earth. Jiva Goswami writes in purport or commentary to text 1, the description continues in the next verse. Then, in the evening, when Krishna returned, as previously described, returned back to the village. Arista arrived. Vishnu Purana describes this. Quote, once, midway through the period of dusk, when Krishna was eager to perform the rasa dance, Aristasura madly entered the cowherd village, terrifying everyone. A very similar description is given in the Harivangsha. Every day the gopis passed the daylight hours in singing his pastimes. At the end of the evening, after finishing his dinner, he left his bedroom to go for the rasa dance and went beyond the village of Braja. Sridhar Swami says, when Krishna would return every day from the forest, Braja would rejoice. At that time, Arista came near Braja rather than inside. By tearing up the earth with his hooves, he showed his nature as a crazed bull eager to fight. Because he tore up the earth with his hooves, he must have been huge in size. And Sanatana Goswami writes, with obedient heart, I offer respects to the great devotees who are overjoyed with prema from just a relationship with a speck of the dust of Krishna's lotus feet. It's a nice way to begin, huh? I'll read it again. With obedient heart, I offer respects to the great devotees who are overjoyed with prema from just a relationship with the speck of dust of Krishna's lotus feet. The description continues in the next verse. Then, in the evening, Krishna returned. This is repeating. Or others are repeating his words because he was before them. The present topic concerning Arista, and after that, Krishna's departure to Mathura, very different from the pastimes of the bliss of Gokula. In the evening, when Krishna returned to Braja, the demon came there. And it quotes that same Vishnu Purana reference. Once, midday, through the period of dusk, etc. After the gopis sang about his pastimes to get relief from the pain of separation, on some evening, the demon came. His name means, Rishta means inauspicious for the cows. Arista. He had the form of a bull. Because of his huge form, his hooves broke the earth. We can assume, because our acharyas teach us this, that there was a lot that happened in between chapter 35 and chapter 36. Just like the incarnations of the Lord are as many as there are waves in a river, who can count them? And after you've counted them, there's more waves. So the number of incarnations is many. The number of demons is less number. But we heard earlier, daily Krishna would engage in killing 2 or 3 demons. Commonly it was 2. At least that's more commonly expressed. And the explanation of why 2 was so the boys would stop playing and have lunch, and the boys would stop playing and go back. So the time was around 11 o'clock and around 4 o'clock. Very regulated demon-killing pastimes. Because they were so absorbed. And similarly, this situation with Narada going to Kamsa, after going to Kamsa, Narada went to Braja, because Krishna was so absorbed, and it was to interrupt that absorption. Now, he did it very diplomatically and politely, but that was the program, the intention, to bring Krishna to Mathura and all the rest of his pastimes. We have this nice consideration of why Krishna didn't return to Braja after he went to Mathura. And there's many. But one of the considerations was he appeared in this world. In his divinity, he can move between exhibiting his divinity and exhibiting sweetness, and he doesn't get confused. But the intensity of his feelings of love for the residents of Vrindavan, if that alone was in Krishna's heart, then he would have gone back to Vrindavan, forget everything else. But his father Vasudeva had requested him to remain, because after killing Kamsa, he was anticipating, rightly so, demons would be infuriated, and they would come and retaliate, take revenge. So he had to stay to give protection, and surely that is what happened in Mathura, Jarasandha being the principal one, but others. So he had been requested by his father, and he was obliged. And there's many other things of why he didn't go. Many other things. And why he didn't invite Nanda to come if he couldn't go. Because he had given his promise he would come. So that's another, I have to keep my promise. And so the consideration goes, he would return to Vrindavan after having killed the demons, which is what happened, according to Padma Purana. And my understanding of this Gopal Champu is, that's the context. Krishna is in Vrindavan for those 2 months. Radha is there, Nanda, and just so Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta are asked to relate the pastimes of Krishna as they understood it from Narada. And it's something similar to Love and Kush narrating Ram's pastimes. Very similar in Ayodhya. And Ram sitting amongst everybody, instead of, he got off his seat and sat amongst everybody just to hear, because he was enthralled by their narration. So it's a retelling of Krishna's pastimes to the Brijbasis. Primarily, Gopal Champu, primarily his pastimes in Vrindavan, with references to other pastimes also. So they were enthralled to hear. So then, all the more reason for us to also hear with great attention. This evening we're going to hear something about make sure I get the pronunciation of his name correctly. There was a son, we heard about the astrologer in the royal family. What was his name? Who did the name-giving ceremony for Krishna? Huh? Gargamuni. Gargamuni? Yes. Gargamuni. Gargamuni had a son. And his son's name was Bhaguri Muni. Bhaguri Muni. Celebrated, there were several sages, naturally, and they gave Brahminical service. There was the Yajnik Brahmanas, but there are some very special Brahmanas. Bhaguri Muni was residing in Braja. And Gargamuni was residing in Mathura, but his son was residing in Braja. And he was considered the chief priest of Braja. And he regularly recited things, the scriptures, Vedic scriptures. So one of his recitations, we'll hear more about this evening, one of his recitations was making this prediction, same as his father had done, that Krishna would do this and do that, the other thing. So we're beginning chapter 36. Back in chapter 31, there's a reference where the gopis are speaking about killing of demons before they're killed, in chapter 31. And one of them specifically is Rishtasura, and because that's right in the verse before it happened. So the explanation in the commentary is Bhargari Muni and Gargamuni explained these things would happen, but they knew the demon by name. In any case, the pastime. So it's certainly fascinating. I mean, there's many features of Krishna's pastimes that are very fascinating, but one of them is, on the one hand, people, Brijbasis in particular, saw him as their beloved friend, their beloved son, their beloved lover, their beloved. And that was the predominating mood. We're hearing again and again the sweetness mood. And they also understood, because he again and again exhibited his divinity, they understood his powers. But they weren't disturbed by his powers. It just enhanced their love for him, because they understood his powers were from Narayan, and he was exhibiting powers that Narayan gave him, just like somebody may sing very beautifully. Even before they have music lessons, they just sing very beautifully. Prabhupada made this comment about John Lennon. I don't know the context, but he said John Lennon in his previous life was a great musician. He didn't elaborate, but from his childhood he had musical ability, and celebrated person. Prabhupada, didn't say that deductively. He just said in his previous life. So anyway, people may exhibit powers, and Krishna was exhibiting powers, and they weren't disturbed. The part of the science of rasa is this display of opulence, Aishvarya, has a tendency to diminish intimacy, like when Krishna displays the universal form. Arjuna goes, uh-oh, I treated you like just a friend, and we did this and that together as friends, and I shouldn't have done that. The intimacy feature of their relationship became eclipsed or diminished, not fully eclipsed. But in the case of the Brijbasis, that didn't happen. It didn't happen largely because the nature of the love was so strong. Strong, intense, absorbed in a certain mood that nothing could stand before it. So they found different ways to process Krishna's display of opulence. We read, maybe you remember, when after the falling of the twin Arjuna trees, Yamala Arjuna trees, Nanda came, the chapter begins, the whole thing had happened, and there he saw the two trees, and there he saw Krishna tied around the waist, standing there smiling, and wondering, how did Yasoda do this, tie him up, and how did the trees fall, and remember that? And then the elders asked the cowherd boys, they said, what happened? He did it. They point to him. He did it. He knocked him over. Not only knocked him over, but after he knocked him over, these two celestial beings, very effulgent and beautifully dressed, came out of the trees. And they spoke these wonderful things in praise of Krishna, and then they left. And so the elders, yeah, children's talk. But the Brahmanas, the commentary says, the Brahmanas were considering, maybe it's true. They're looking open-mindedly at different options. But then it says, as they were considering in that way, their intensity of love was also such that it didn't disturb them. It enhanced rather than detracted from their love. It strengthened their affection for Krishna, didn't disturb it. So in our process of Krishna consciousness, sometimes this question is asked. With the regulations of bhakti, specific even with the regulation of deity worship, we worship the deity, which is, we're taught, this is the form of Krishna, and we worship in opulence. That's what we're supposed to be doing. There was some question the other day, some while ago. Some people say that they see their deity and they relate with their deity in this spontaneous mood, that he's a little boy and da 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 da. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We're not qualified for that. We're supposed to. So, but for us, it's sadhana, and it has this formality to it. But even in our formality, we're hearing about Krishna's pastimes. We're getting, through the mercy of Shukadeva Goswami and Vyasadeva and our acharyas and everything, to appreciate the superlative form of the personality of Godhead. You know, not only Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, but the original Bhagavan. And what's it like there? Again and again, in more introductory sense, Prabhupada would speak about Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and Brahman is incomplete. You can't understand the sun globe without understanding sunshine, by simply understanding sunshine. But conversely, if you understand the sun globe, you can understand what you need to know about sunshine. But neither guarantees you understand the sun god. What to speak of entering the sun planet and meeting the sun god, and then the intimacy of a relationship with the sun god. Prabhupada gave this example. Supposing you could meet President Nixon. You had a relationship and you sat down with him for 2 full days, and you asked anything and he answered everything about the government. Then you'd understand about the government. But you'd also understand about President Nixon. And otherwise, what are you going to understand? You'll have some idea. You have some idea. Maybe a wrong idea, but some idea. But, that's how you're going to understand. So, same. The personal relationship with Krishna, and this is not just Bhagavan, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, this is Vrindavan. And the intimacy of his relationships with everybody. Now, as it's said, it's a big mood shift going from chapter 35 to chapter 36. But it naturally weaves back into the sweetness because it's Braja. They all take shelter of Krishna. In other words, the killing, in the language of our commentaries, the killing of demons is routine work. Like brushing your teeth is routine work. And then there's your life. And the life of Braja is the exchanges of loving dealings. So it's incidental. At the same time, there's a purpose. There's a purpose for the residents of Braja. There's a purpose for the demigods. There's a purpose for us. There's multiple purposes through the killing of the demons. We'll hear some more about it this evening. The purpose of Krishna's killing of the demons. Because that question came up, so we're going to go there a little bit. Let's see if there's some discussion. 10 after 8. When Krishna kills the demons, the verses say, the demigod showered flowers and beat drums and danced and so forth, because that was the request that they made of Krishna for his appearance, or Vishnu. And so when he's fulfilling his promise, they're relieved, because these demons are harassing Mother Earth that disturbs the demigods because they're overseeing everything. So they're very happy. It has multiple purposes.
Maharaj, this from Gopal Champu that you were reading, I didn't understand it. It reads, Radha again said, if dark Krishna does not give his association to others, then I will not burn in flames of sorrow.
And it's a transcendental competition, not the mundane envy. Mundane envy says, this person who's dear to me should not show affection to others, and if they don't show affection to others, I'm okay. But because the second part explains, I'm not fortunate like the cowherd boys, because Krishna just places his arm around them and they're so fortunate. But if he weren't to do that, then I wouldn't feel sorrowful. It's a transcendental competition. It's not a mundane emotion.
Also, Krishna killing 2 demons every day. I mean, do I understand that not all the demons that Krishna killed are being described in Bhagavatam?
Yes, that's what the principal ones, and who knows what the principal ones are, but the principal ones are revealed, and there's many others.
Maharaj, this question is from Prakash Narayan Govindan Prabhu, and the question is 2 parts. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that Aristasura represents a particular anartha in our heart, pride arising from indulging in false religions invented by cheaters who cause neglect of devotion. Could you please help me understand how this is? Is it because Aristasura's actions was going to disrupt rasa dance and gopis with being with Krishna?
No, it's just his nature. I mean, it's not specific to the rasa dance. It's his nature in general. We'll hear it this evening. I plan to read exactly the words of Bhaktivinoda Thakur from his books, from his writings on this topic. But it's not specific to the pastime connected to his Aristasura's appearance. It's tendencies within us that are obstacles on the path of bhakti. So when such tendencies are within us, which are obstacles in the path of bhakti, Krishna's destroying a particular demon indicates his destroying that tendency which is an obstacle within us. You said there's 2 parts.
Oh, I'm sorry, Maharaj, it came as 2 different messages.
Okay, 1 message, okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, this is about the faith. We heard, like you are saying, like with the faith, we have we start with it, little faith, and then we start hearing with the sound vibration, we get the knowledge, and then that strengthens our devotion. So even what I was just thinking is, like, even if we have little faith when I'm hearing, but when my goal is not clear, so does it still strengthen my devotion? Like I'm hearing, but it is not maybe attentive, or maybe my clarity of goal is not clear, or should we have that clarity of goal when we hear? Or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, with material filters, what's going to be our sense of goal is going to be something material. As we go on hearing, the filters will get removed and the goal becomes more clear and more clear. The real goal becomes more clear. So, preliminary faith, or adau shraddha, how that's articulated is going to be different for different people, but something along the lines of, keeping it really simple. There's a higher reality. Or there's a potential within me to know who I am. And I have faith that there is that potential, and I'm approaching this process, the hearing process, that this, at least exploring with the faith that potentially this is the means to get me to the point where I can understand who I am, or I can connect with that higher reality. Preliminary faith. And then that can mature and strengthen.
So it's like more of openness when
Yes.
I'm hearing, like.
Yes, yes. You invest that faith in the sound vibration and the source of the sound vibration. Yeah, ultimately, that's Krishna. But the preliminary, there's no hearing, there's no connection with the source without some faith, because I'm going over that way.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I had two questions.
Mm.
The first one is...
Hold the microphone like this.
Okay. The first one is regarding the class day before yesterday about the time.
About time.
So when you gave the example of Pandavas and Kunti, there were three things that I understood was that whatever we are acting, it should be the correct thing, it should be pleasing to Krishna, and then it should be along with our mentor or a spiritual master's guidance. Basically, like it should meet the three criteria. Is that?
I'm listening.
Okay. So is this true even if I am changing something in my life for material success, but if I'm still following these three, meeting these three criteria, is it okay to strive for
Yes.
material success or change?
It's natural.
Okay.
It's not our highest position, but it's a natural. Remember that discussion on Gona Dharma, secondary Dharma? That's what that is.
Okay. So thank you, Maharaj, for that. And the other question is more about the character building for the kids.
Character building.
Yeah, so sometimes it's not like, for example, we always teach our kids to tell the truth, never to lie. That is the moral value. But there are situations when people lie, and as an adult, we understand that if it's not harming anyone or, it's just saving that person
A
from
white lie.
embarrassment, we let it go.
Should you let it go? Should you do it, or should you let it go, or what's your question?
Should you let it go? Like kids generally have that
So
tendency of telling on.
you're talking about parenting, and you have a dependent child,
Yes.
and you both witnessed somebody lying. Is that that's the scene? No.
It's more from the school side. So
From the school side.
When the kids, they have a tendency to tell on at the younger age about their friends, right? They will go and tell the teacher that, oh, this kid did something wrong, or they become
And they
aggressive.
just make it up, and it's not really true. It's a white lie.
When the kid really did something wrong, the other kid, but really, do you need to step in at that point and embrace the other kid, or should they? Where is that balance? How do we teach them that you have to respect others too, like others' dignity? You don't want to shame the other person. It has to be.
I'm confused.
Okay, so
Let me try to say back what I think you're asking. Because the confusion is, tell the truth, and there are such things as white lies, which isn't the truth, but you say them anyways because there's some purpose behind saying it anyways. And then there's a third thing, and that is, there's a child that sees something. Is that child obliged to go tell the teacher, I saw something? Or not? Because maybe it's better to teach the child, just be respectful of differences and don't go there.
yes.
That's what three different things.
But
That's why I'm confused. Just stay with the third one. That's because really that's what your question is, the third one.
Yes, Yes, so what is that difference? How do we teach the young kids to say that, okay, saying the truth is really important, but there are situations where it is okay to let go if it's going to harm the other kid more by telling the truth?
Well, okay. Well, there's layers of, there's no question if somebody is at physical risk or emotional risk, particularly physical or emotional, you're obliged to tell. Then it's not, that's a line. You know, somebody's bullying, you tell. You don't, they have to like fabricate what happened, but it's an emotional, it's emotional hurt for the receiver of bullying, and the giver of bullying has to be checked. So tell. I mean, this is me, not like, I'm not a parent, but it's just a standard. That I've learned from, Krishna Lila. You're obliged to tell when somebody's at risk, physically or emotionally. You're obliged to, disclose. Not specifically with child. You want to clarify?
So
Go ahead.
I get this part, but as a parent, my dilemma lies that now my kid is also going to be at risk at some point of time. So does that mean that I have to be strong enough to let it go, like let my child grow on the right path?
Sometimes, but so this is a clarification point. You have a duty. Parenting is like a never-ending topic. I've learned there's no end to it, because this is going to lead to like 16 other questions on parenting. From parents as well as from the kids. What about, so I don't want to do that. But I will respond to your question, but please know and follow up with 16 other questions. You have a duty to protect. And part of that protection is knowing your child. And what's the makeup of your child, and what does protection look like for your child? And there is a point of letting things go. There's another point of saying so, reporting immediately. There's another thing of waiting. I'm not a parent, but I interact with people, and so there's levels. The duty of the superior person, in this case it's a parent, is to protect, and you can overprotect, you can underprotect, and so where's the balance? That essentially, the dependent, in this case a child, has to feel protected. They can come to you and say anything, and you're not going to judge them, and so now it comes guiding. When do you need to say something, or not, or just let it go, or whatever? That you take a look at options, but they need to feel protected. At the end of the day, at the end of the whole exercise and exchange, they know that you're shelter, and I'm protected by you because you're my shelter. And you can go too much one way, too much the other way, which is, I think, what you're asking. Well, where's the line? And I'm responding by saying, one line is what I already said. When they're physically at risk or emotionally at risk, you have to protect. And another is then the child, and that there may be a tendency to be more talkative, or to be more stoic, or more this or that. So you have to know your child. Not putting you're in that role of protection for them. They're sheltered. and they feel safe in your care. And then there's so many factors to consider, as I'm mentioning some of them, then you just have to, depend on super soul and experience to say, this is the way I'm going to guide my child in this situation and discriminate between this situation, that situation. I'm saying the variables have to be looked at, not just like a cookie cutter answer to this question you're asking, without compromising their safety, without compromising their sense of being protected. And don't overprotect and don't underprotect. So you can make light of the thing, or you can advise them to be forgiving. You can advise all kinds of things, as long as you're not those two main features. Their physical and emotional well-being is intact, and they feel you have affection for them, and you're instilling values, or at least offering values appropriate for the particular child and the particular circumstance. It's a time, place, circumstance matter, and it's 8:30.
Thank you, Maharaj. No, thank you so much. From this, I understand that at least the first step is to make sure that the kids feel protected, and then depending on their nature, they can, on their intelligence at that level, they can
their
take
nature
the
and the
actions.
circumstance, and that they the next time something comes, or in their young adult life, they're feeling, I was protected. That doesn't get compromised, because if they feel unprotected, that's going to stay with them. So you can't overdo it, you can't underdo it. You can't be, as this saying goes, the helicopter parent. You have to let them move. And this is another thing that I've learned from parents, and that is, it's really good if at a certain stage, that there's somebody that they can go to instead of mother and father, that they can take matters to and disclose matters to in confidence. Someone that's like, a little bit older and wise. And it's good to have those relationships to help the child have some oxygen and, not smother them. And then depending upon, they may bring some matter to you, but they're already, not overly emotional. And there's the final protection for them. That's just a tip in parenting. And I don't want to do more of it, please. Okay, just pass the microphone.
Maharaj, this question arrived yesterday right after class ended. It's again from Prakash Narayan Govindan Prabhu. The connection with Krishna comes from the connection to Guru and Sampradaya. This connection is eternal. So this connection is already there. Is this correct to say?
Well, not exactly. I have heard in China there's this prevalent idea. Somewhere out there is my guru. I just have to find out where that somewhere out there guru is. It's already there. It's eternal. I just have to discover it. Kind of like this idea that some people have of a soulmate. Somewhere out there is my soulmate. It's already existing. You just have to find it. So it's not quite like that. But once the connection is made, then it is an everlasting connection. It's a spiritual connection. That's this time topic. It's 8:30. Do we have more, or we're done? Anything else in the room? Srila Prabhupada ki? Jai.